always on your side. This is First Coast News at 5.
Well, it is not over yet. The breaking news right now, we could be headed for a recount in the races to run Florida.
So here's why. As of 4 o'clock, both the race for governor and Senate are within the margin for an automatic recount. The candidates for governor are separated by less than 40,000 votes, as you see here. So that's less than 0.5%. And the Senate race is even closer tonight. The difference there is about 21,000 votes, and that's within 1/4 of a percentage point.
So judging by your comments on our election stories, there is a whole lot of passion and a lot of anger over this possibility. It's going both ways. We will not get into that here. Instead, what we're going to do is report only the facts, and we will tell you what we know. We'll tell you what election officials are saying, and we will answer as many of your questions as we possibly can.
So, one of the biggest, what triggers a recount? Well, here's the answer. Florida law requires a recount in races where the winning margin is 0.5% or less. Now, if the final vote point, 25% or less, then Florida law requires a hand recount. So if we get to a hand recount, here are some of the terms you may hear. Overvotes and undervotes. Those will be the only ballots getting recounted, and a hand recount to determine the voter's intent.
Now, overvotes can be ballots that look like this one, this example on the right. Someone who marked a candidate, crossed it out for whatever reason, and then filled in another bubble. Or maybe they went outside the lines and accidentally marked a second candidate. Now, when we talk about the undervote, that could be when a voter did not properly mark their ballot by circling the candidate's name instead, like you see right there. Or maybe they failed to fill in enough of the bubble for the machine to count it. The machine may fail to count it, but then a hand recount could determine the voter's actual intent. So another big question we're hearing from you is, if there's a recount, when would it end? The state requires that all recounts, machine or manual, be completed by November the 18th.
So as for what happens if a county isn't finished by the deadline, well, that's where the lawyers will likely step in, and we will all be getting those flashbacks to the 2000 election.
So we will have to see what happens. And now on to the Georgia governor's race. Republican Brian Kemp declared victory, officially resigned as Georgia's Secretary of State.
But Stacey Abrams still has not conceded. She says that there are still enough uncounted votes to force a runoff. That would happen if Kemp's total fell to less than 50%, no matter how far behind Abrams would be. Now, right now, the two are separated by nearly 63,000 votes. We're going to have much more on the remaining votes being counted, including provisional ballots, and how it could impact the races in just a few minutes.
Never thought I would see the things around the country that would happen, but I've learned it doesn't matter what community you're in, it doesn't matter how safe your community is, it can happen anywhere.
We woke up to the push alerts this morning from many news organizations. Another horrifying mass shooting in our country, this time in California. So you just heard from the sheriff there of Ventura County reacting to the latest mass killing. And these senseless acts have just become a part of our everyday lives.
It's an unfortunate thing. This coming now less than 2 weeks after a similar incident which left 11 people dead in a Pittsburgh synagogue. What happened early this morning in Thousand Oaks left 13 people dead, including the shooter. Now, one of those who was killed, a sheriff's deputy, as he ran inside the Borderline Bar and Grill in an attempt to save and stop the massacre and to save all the innocent lives. Sergeant Ron Hellis was set to retire next year.
And tonight, authorities are searching for clues or some sort of motive at the shooter's home. The gunman has been identified as 28-year-old Ian Long, and he was armed with a handgun during all of this. Investigators tell us the gunman was the subject of a welfare check back in April. He was acting erratically. A mental health evaluation at that time cleared him as a danger to himself or others. Now, witnesses describe a chaotic scene as people just ran everywhere to take cover.
Couldn't get out because the shooting was on that side. So then our friends got the bar stools and they started slamming it against the window so we could get out.
So here's what we know about the gunman. He's a Marine who served one combat tour in Afghanistan for 7 months, spanning from 2010 to 2011. Investigators say that they responded to a call for someone in distress at his home in April, finding him irate and irrational. A mental health professional determined that he did not qualify for a psychiatric hold at that time.
And as we mentioned at the top of the newscast, mass shootings have become an all too common occurrence in our lives every day.
So let's take a look now at a list of the deadliest shootings just this year. 17 people were killed at Marjory Stoneman Douglas High School. That was on Valentine's Day when a former student opened fire inside the school. Then May 18th, another school shooting resulted in 10 lives being taken at Santa Fe High School in Texas. Less than 2 weeks ago, 11 were gunned down at that synagogue in Pittsburgh, followed by the shooting that happened in California.
And some of America's deadliest shootings all happened within the last 11 years. 58 people died in Las Vegas in 2017 when a gunman opened fire on a crowd at an outdoor music concert. Earlier in the year, 49 people died at the Pulse nightclub in Orlando when a man entered the building and started shooting. And then in April of 2007, a gunman shot and killed 32 students and staff at Virginia Tech. 5
years later, Sandy Hook Elementary in Newtown, Connecticut. That's where a 20-year-old man opened fire, killing 20 children and 6 staff members at that school. And the 5th deadliest shooting in U.S. history, it happened last year at First Baptist Church in Sutherland Springs, Texas. 26 people died that day.
And tonight, NBC Nightly News and ABC's World News will have extensive coverage on this latest shooting.
And you can also find the latest details on our website anytime, firstcoastnews.com. Well, now, continuing our election coverage, as we mentioned at the top of the show, several important elections could be headed to a recount. A recount is triggered when the margin is less than 5%.
So the Florida governor's race, Senate race, and agriculture commissioner race are inching closer to that becoming a reality. Our First Coast News is Bethany Anderson. She's on your side tonight, checking in with our Duval County Supervisor of Elections to see how an influx of provisional ballots could impact the results here in Duval County.
You know, Anthony, it's interesting. A lot of people have been asking me on Twitter all day today, like, hey, is this going to be anything like the 2000 election where we had Al Gore and we also had George Bush then? And the answer is no, not really. And here's why. Because back then we just did not have the technology that we do today. And now they also have a broader idea of how many people are going to be mailing in their ballots, how many people are going to be submitting those provisional ballots as well. But I want to show you just how busy it has been out here today. If you take a look at this parking lot, it was filled, and now a lot of these workers are leaving, and that's because they're hoping that the deadline to count all these ballots here in Duval should be ending about any minute now. So also, one more thing to note, if you have gone online here and you've been checking to see what your status is with the Supervisor of Elections in Duval and you don't see your name and you don't see information, they say keep calm. They haven't tabulated everything just yet, but chances are you are in the system, and to check back within the next 48 hours. For now, we're live here at the Supervisor of Elections office waiting to find out what happens in Duval. Bethany Anderson, First Coast News, on your side.
All right, Bethany, thanks. And just to clarify what I said at the beginning, a recount's triggered when the margin is less than 0.5%. So we're going to continue to keep a very close eye on all these races. And you can get your latest news in the politics section on our website, firstcoastnews.com. Stay tuned for the latest election coverage coming up tonight at 5:30 and 6.
Now to the latest on the firing of Attorney General Jeff Sessions. Officials say it could have major implications on Special Counsel Robert Mueller's Russia investigation. The person now overseeing that investigation is Matthew Whitaker, who is now the acting Attorney General. Whitaker suggested last year Mueller and his team have just too much power. We're going to continue to follow the latest on this developing story. Questions over who will replace Sessions, leading to several reports that Florida Attorney General Pam Bondi is on that short list. We've asked if she's being considered for the role, and her office gave us this statement. Quote, as the Attorney General has repeatedly said, she has not yet made a decision as to what she will do next.
Driving to work this afternoon, and I went through a lot of rain, and there's still some...
Glad you made it safely.
Yeah, made it safely.
We do have some wet roads out there. Think north of Duval, not a whole lot happening, but south of Duval, very active. Not just showers, but yes, folks, we have some thunderstorms out there, and it is coming down to beat the band, to strangle the frog. Whatever way you look at it, this is how we're looking at it with the Doppler. So notice north of Duval, not a lot going on. Could be later on tonight, some showers and thunderstorms develop out toward the Suwannee and west of the Okefenokee. But the action is, and I think will probably continue to be south of Duval. We're talking Clay, St. Johns, especially Putnam County and into Flagler County. So we're going to zoom on in. And to show you, this is where the heaviest of the storms are. You can be a forecaster with me. Notice that the northern extent, so this is where the rain is ending, is gradually settling southward. That's the frontal system that came on in. In fact, dropped to about a point like this, working out to the west. and to the south up against the heat of the day. This is where the flood advisories are in effect. Remember, flood advisory is not quite as extreme as a flood warning, but it does mean could be some standing water on the roadways, far southern Clay and northern Putnam County. So we're going to zoom in here just to let you know this area, at least until about 5:45. There's some lightning as well, dangerous lightning. And notice as we go through the night, this activity should decrease, whereas thunderstorms over the west will increase. We'll have much more in just a bit.
Thank you, Tim. Let's go to Putnam County now. An Amtrak train collided with a semi-truck near the Seminole Electric Plant. This all happened around 10:30 this morning. We're told 162 people were on that train and 12 people suffered minor injuries. The train was traveling from New York to Miami.
All right, a new business now up and running in Jacksonville Beach, offering people a different way to see the sights or to hop from bar to bar. And it's the first of its kind here on the First Coast. Juliette Dreyer has that story for us tonight.
When you come to the beach, you're probably used to walking, maybe biking, even driving a car around town. But I bet you've never seen anything like this before.
It's a new way to cruise around Jacksonville's beaches. 3 wheels, 6 seats, 1 tuk-tuk.
My baby now is in college. These are my new babies.
Stephanie Dale is Chief Tuck-In Officer of Go Tuck-In, a new Jacksonville Beach-based company offering historic tours, pub crawls, and specialty events.
Every time that we're driving around, people literally honk their horn, they wave to us, they hoot and holler. You know, you don't see them every day.
At this point, you're probably asking yourself, what the tuck is a tuk-tuk?
Typically something that people use for taxis around lots of parts of the world. We even have doors.
Dale was first inspired by the tuk-tuk she saw in Costa Rica 6 years ago and has been working since to bring an eco-friendly version to the First Coast. This fleet of 4 runs on commercial-grade batteries.
We're so spread out here at the beaches that it's hard for people to go from place to place.
Go Tuck-In first started tours around the beaches about 2 weeks ago.
Go Tuck-In.
And they'll soon expand to the Riverside and Avondale areas of downtown Jacksonville. Dale says all the company's business partners are local, and she's thrilled to have a new tool to show off the towns she loves so much.
It's a very emotional thing whenever you pour your heart and soul into something, and you just know it's going to change the dynamics of our entire community and give people a different perspective of what Jacksonville really is.
In Jacksonville Beach, Juliette Dreyer, First Coast News on your side.
Today, the Salvation Army kicked off its iconic Red Kettle campaign with those famous bell ringers. You'll see the kettles at several different locations, such as the Avenues Mall, Walmart, Publix, Sam's Club, everywhere. Funds raised from the kettles will go towards the Salvation Army's hunger and homelessness program throughout the year.
Well, doing your homework before you hire a contractor can really be harder than you think.
Our investigative team has been looking into a tactic some businesses use that can leave your roof in disrepair.